righto, lad. Well, today I'm lucky enough to be joined by a man many regard as the greatest lad to ever wear the black jersey. On the field, he was pound for pound the hardest hitter in the game with a skill set to match. These attributes took him from the Northland Taniwhas to playing 75 games for the Crusaders, which has recently had him earn a spot in the Elite Hall of Fame. And of course, he reached the pinnacle of the game in New Zealand, having 36 caps for the All Blacks. And off the field is where he really stood out. He's known as one of the most generous people on the planet, a deep thinker, and one of the greatest characters in our game. It is, of course, the great Norm Maxwell. Welcome, mate.
Well, thanks for the intro there, mate. There's a few things you missed out. That was great. I appreciate it.
What did I miss?
Just the old loose cannon idiot. I don't know. Things like that, you know. But, no, it's all good.
Mate, it's an absolute honour to have you on, and I know you're only back in New Zealand for a week, so for you to give up your time and jump on here, really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And you're back to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, so only the fourth Crusader to ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was, like I was saying at the event, I'm not really one to be a fan of like singling people out, especially in a team, a whole team sport or a whole. It's not just a team; it's a whole ecosystem really that creates the Crusaders. It's like I sort of liken it to an iceberg. You know? We're just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so many things that go into it underneath there. So many people doing some amazing jobs underneath, which allows us to sort of be like little kids showing off in a sandpit, you know. So I'm not really like it's a little bit unfair to single any individual out really when it's a whole team effort. But on the other side of it, it was, I don't know, it was quite an honour. It sort of touched me in ways I didn't think it would, you know, and it was just so nice to be able to share it with the other two as well, you know, because if I think about like honouring them, it makes sense, you know. If it's sort of for yourself, it's like a little bit like, oh, really? Yeah. You know, and so it was really nice to sort of, because they were a couple of really good players, and the other guys as well, like Wayne Smith and Todd Blackadder and Justin Marshall, they all put a massive effort into the rugby and the rugby community. So, yeah, for that, it's an honour, you know.
Just goes to show what an impact you had on this club in your time here.
Yeah, it was sort of it was cool because it was like it was in '96 when I came down here. I picked in '95, and there was a lot of uncertainty around in those days, you know, and. I was originally from Northland, so I was in the Chiefs region, and they had a few good players, you know, and they had, I think it was Blair Larson, Ian Jones, they had Mark Cooksley, I think, maybe, and so their locks were all tapped out, so the Crusaders picked me to come down here, so there was a lot of sort of, the Crusaders region was just a little, they only had really like Wayne, well, I don't want to offend anybody, but like they had the one major team at the time. It's just like a bigger population, but a lot of the other centres they drew from. Well, the Highlanders are probably similar, but they drew from many sort of major centres. So we sort of drafted in a lot of. We probably had the most draft players that year. You know, so a lot of guys from Bay of Plenty, other guys, and so. How it worked back then, I think you could lock in a certain amount of players, and the rest of them had to go into the draft. Yeah, and then they just, I don't know if it works the same now.
It's all different now. It's all changed.
Then they just picked the excess. So I think you could lock in like it's probably a huge, bigger squad now as well. Yeah, I think we only had like 26 players back then.
Oh, true.
And so you could lock in like 22 or something like that, and then the four that you sort of wanted, you needed to put them in there, hoping somebody wouldn't pick them up. Yeah. You know? And so we were sort of lucky enough I was lucky enough to come down for that. So it was just amazing, just the whole thing. You know, that first year was very difficult, but then we sort of just built it. I think when Gilbert Anoka came down, and when Smitty came down, that was a huge impact on all of us. You know, and we just sort of went from there. I think the talent was there, but the structure really supported us, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm keen to hear more about the Crusaders in a little bit, but one thing that stood out for me was from the Hall of Fame was you getting up there, acceptance speech like I've never seen before. Bit of maxioke, bit of karaoke for a way to receive award. Like it was one of the coolest things I've seen.
Yeah, well, I sort of like, man, it's good. Let's do something a little bit different, you know. Yeah. I think one of my major intentions was just to create a bit of a spark in there,
did you what?
Just like, you know, and put the celebrational sort of mood onto the situation. So I think that went down pretty well, but it was always going to be an easy crowd, you know.
Yeah.
When you got like, you got the alumni there, and you got all the people that sort of know you very well. I mean, no matter what you do, it's gonna, you know, even if it's terrible, they're gonna go down well, you know.
Yeah.
So it was an easy crowd to work with, you know. So that gives you a little bit of confidence to follow through on some unusual plans. But,
well, I love your confidence to just be yourself in that situation. Most people would find that quite an intimidating environment, you know. I think there's 700 people there at a quite a fancy lunch, and you've just gone, put a wig on, got the music humming, got everyone dancing.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, sometimes you got to take a risk there, brother. Sometimes you crumble, sometimes you do all right. So I was on the I've had my fair share of crumbling, so
Is that something you've always found quite easy, like being yourself? And I know there's a lot of, especially kids these days, who you know, they're pretty straight up with how they act in front of people until you really get to know someone. But
I suppose it's an interesting thing to say, isn't it? To be yourself, you know, but who are you? You know, this is I think this is a even more sort of pertinent question, isn't it? I think it was very challenging, you know, especially when I was really young. Challenging situation to be in, sort of to be in the professional rugby sort of back then. I didn't really have the tools to deal with a lot of things. And so, when it comes to the whole public speaking thing, it was like you didn't really know that you would sign up for that when you started playing rugby. You know? It was just a sort of a byproduct that was sort of took me by surprise, you know.
Yeah.
And you sort of learnt, you get thrown up there, you get pushed up there, and then you either, you know, because you I hated public speaking. It was like I remember my first ever speech. I was laughing with a couple of my Northland mates who came down. I think one of them would have been there at the speech, and it was my first year that I played for 95 in 95 for Northland.
Yeah.
And the team would go around and talk to primary schools about the benefit of reading, you know. And at that stage, I had never read a book in my life. So first of all, my first public speech, talking about something I got no idea about, trying to like talk to these kids about like the importance of reading, you know. I felt like a super hypocrite at the time. And so I'm just like packing, like ready to go out on the stage. The whole assembly's there, like, you know, this is going to be good. And so then I just went up there and stood in front of the kids, and then I just put double guns like this, and I go, read, and then I walked off. And I think about that's probably the best speech I've ever done. It's like to the point. It couldn't have gone any better, to tell you the truth.
Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely, just like to the point. And it was just the double guns, read, and then off. And so I've probably sort of carried on with that style of public speaking, but and so over the years you sort of get thrown up and you sink or swim, and I've had a few shockers, and then you sort of go away, and then some odd time you go okay, but then the more you do it, the more you know, you sort of get a little. I don't think you're ever going to be not nervous, but I think part of it, I think if you're clear with the message, I try not to do words, I try not to like think about like a sentence and put it in there. I just try and like have like maybe like an image or a feeling or something, and then you sort of talk around that, you know.
That's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, but the first part, like of the karaoke and all that, is a little bit of a tool, you know.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it's a simple tool, you know, to sort of relax everybody else, and then, you know, it's. I think Fiki's job was probably more difficult.
Yeah.
You know? He was the one that sort of started it up and all the rest of it. But no, the energy in the room is easy, you know. Yeah. There was a lot of love there. There was a lot of people that were interested in it. So,
It won't be something that I'll be looking to do to ease the room, but I think it was such a cool Such a cool thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird though, because it's not like I'm cruising around now and then I'm seeing people, oh, do some karaoke, man. Now I'm the karaoke guy. It's just like one thing I tried to do. And yes, I did karaoke. I haven't done karaoke for years, man. It's just like, it was just open late at night and we used to go there, but now I'm the karaoke king. But that's all right.
You've got the new title.
Yeah, I'm going to have to come up with a few new numbers now. I can't just keep repeating the same old ones. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, I am keen to hear a little bit more about your upbringing, the early part of your life. I know you grew up in Northland, but what was a young Norm Maxwell like?
Yeah. Oh, man. Far out. Here we go. Let me... Yeah, I think that... how far back do I go with this? How long we got, man?
You're on the time.
Yeah. I think for me is, if I'm thinking about the rugby journey, a lot of time I was sort of, I didn't really knew where I belonged when I was younger. I didn't really have a sense of belonging.
Why was that, you think?
There's a lot of factors that sort of went into that. My parents split up when I was younger, and then my mother had 3 children from a previous marriage, and so I was sort of like the only one from my mother and father, and so I looked a little bit different, but also had different interests. Like my older brothers were mechanically minded. I just liked to play with the ball. It was just something that was natural for me. I liked to play with the tennis ball, and the community that I was in was it was like a mixture, like Māori and European, and sort of with my being like a white skinny guy, it's sort of like there was a little bit of friction there as well, so and so that was sort of like, when you got like European descent, I got Māori blood as well, but I don't look like it, and there's sort of there's in some ways it's like, oh, you don't belong here, it's like go home, or from the and you sort of feel that, it's sort of like, well, I don't really connect to my European roots, like 22,000 kilometres away, but then my roots aren't here, So as a young kid, it's like, well, where do I belong? Where do I fit in here? And I think some people sort of go through that as well, And then at school was another sort of thing. I was diagnosed later on with dyslexia, but I wasn't good at school. I didn't realise at the time was that. Why I wasn't good at, couldn't read from the board, or I couldn't, like I said, I didn't read books. It was very difficult for me to spell and read, and so I sort of had this feeling that I was sort of limited, and dumb, and so rugby and the rugby field was the only place where I felt like freedom, and so this was a place where I really sort of found my own, and that was on the rugby field was the place where I felt alive the most, and everything else I sort of stored up, and had a tendency to hold on to a lot of things. I would store a lot of things, where I wouldn't show it, so I wouldn't show you a lot of pain, and all that, so I had a lot of, I suppose, frustration and things building up inside there, where the rugby allowed me to sort of express myself there, and I was lucky enough to be good at, sort of reasonably good at, naturally sort of talented, but at the same time, I was very skinny, so my body wasn't really designed for playing rugby, but my attitude was, and so, especially in the north, I first started playing rugby league, so.
Oh yeah.
So that there was a rugby ball that I found. It was like an old leather one, and I did it up, and that was my thing. I took it to school and was just like, used to play rugby at school with my friends and at lunchtime and things like that. And this was in like 7 or 8, because none of my family are sports orientated, And I remember my mate's father, he came and visited my parents and asked them if I could play rugby league with his son,
Yeah.
And so my mum didn't really know what she was getting in for, but they said yes, and then since then it was sort of history, All
right.
But I remember being, but it was something that I always did sort of on my own, I always walked to training or did on my own. That was my thing,
Yeah.
And like I said, because they weren't really sport orientated, my mum didn't really want me to play because she was worried I can get hurt, and I can sort of understand that now when having a son myself, and so and that was it was interesting because I was the skinny guy, but I loved the contact, so they'll try and line up the skinny guy, but half the time they'll be getting cut in half, But
and was that from the get go that you had that ability to just chop guys.
Yeah. I think the first, like as I was saying before, I sort of like had this sort of sense of like not really belonging. And I remember the first ever rugby game that I played. It was like the first ever contact was like the guy got the ball and I just ran up and met him like bang.
Yeah.
And there was like a big collision, and I just heard like all the parents going ooh like that. Yeah. And I think that was one of the first time I really felt acknowledged, and so that sort of like it fed this sort of
that's cool
this need to feel seen, I suppose, or to feel that again.
Yeah.
And that was during the contact, and I suppose if you at that stage I didn't really feel like anybody, and if you can make an impact like that, even if it's a physical one, you think, well, actually, I can make an impact in this life, and I can do something, and that was an empowering moment for me, but it also set off a chain of events to that sort of, where I enjoyed that contact part of it,
Yeah.
But I was never really, I think when I was a kid, I was always getting injured doing different things, and I just didn't really have a fear element, like a physical fear.
Yeah.
And I sort of, I don't know, I just tried to tough out the pain, I suppose. And I think my major difference is that I was willing to hurt a little bit more than my opposition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I didn't have the weight or anything, but I would create momentum with just commitment.
Yeah. Did you see it as a lifestyle, a potential lifestyle at this point, or
so this would have been
professional? Was it?
This would have been late '80s, right?
Yeah.
So I'm showing my age now. And in early '90s, so I started playing rugby when I was 14.
Yeah,
which was awesome because I think rugby league gives you all the basics. It was a good sport to learn when you're younger because the rucks and things, lineouts and scrums, the technical stuff can come later. But you learn the basics. Run with the ball, hold on to the ball. You learn how to tackle. You learn how to get in the defensive line and attacking line. And so I think going into rugby, I already had my core skills down. So it was easier for me. And no, I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do when I was growing up, and I just liked to play rugby, and I liked all sports. And so sort of like, when I was at high school, it was just like, oh, what am I going to do,
Yeah.
Just got no idea.
And then rugby came along.
Yeah, and then rugby sort of just appeared out of nowhere. It was like, it just, like you said, in '95, it was just signed up after the World Cup, wasn't it? Just like that, on the eve of the World Cup, and it was like, what, professional rugby now? And that was amazing. And then my life just turned around from when I left school. I went on the unemployment benefit for a little while, and then was just that my mum's didn't really know what to do. My dad was like, I remember my dad rang me up, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not too much. And he's like, oh, come work with me out in the portable mill. And then I was like, I'm going to go Polytech. Next day I was down like finding a course. I did a little bit of a sports course in '95.
Yeah.
And then I ended up playing. I remember going to my club, right? So I was back in Northland. They don't really have any under 19 grades or anything like that. So it was like a secondary schools.
Yeah.
And so when I went to go to my club, like I only had the option to go play club rugby,
Yeah.
So I just walked down to the local club closest to mine, Hora. And I didn't even think that I would make the senior squad, because I'm just turned 19. I was probably 18 at the time.
Yeah.
Skinny as a rake, you know what I mean? Not prepared to play with men.
Yeah.
And I remember turning up and and then I ended up sort of just starting for the A's, and I started that whole season for the A's and played quite well, or reasonably well. And then at the end of that club season, I got picked for the Northland team. I got picked to play against the Northland team, actually, and then it was in played for the Vikings. We played against the Northland team, so I didn't make the original squad.
Yeah.
And then played okay in that game, and then they picked me to play in the Northland team. Then I started all those games, all those through there. Came to the end of the year where we played a semi-final and a final on TV of the second division at the time. We played against Taranaki in the final of the 1995. And then Vance Stewart watched me play that game and then rang me up and said, when you're in the Crusaders. So I went from being at school, like not doing anything, and then I was a professional rugby player, like within a year,
Yeah.
and all those different things. And so it happened really quickly. And so this is one of the things that I was sort of touched on before. I wasn't prepared for in so many levels, on a physical level I wasn't prepared at all.
Yeah.
An emotional and psychological level I wasn't prepared either,
Yeah.
I knew how to play, but I'd never trained before in my life. I'd never done any of these things, and so it was was a bit like the old public speaking. It was a baptism of fire.
Yeah.
So many different things that you need to try and deal with, and you don't have a frame of reference, you know.
Yeah.
Especially being young, you knew that you want to play rugby, but then there's all this other stuff that sort of gets heaped on that you just need to learn to deal with.
Yeah.
You know? And one of the big issues that I had at that time is that I'd created a pattern of just pushing stuff down. So I didn't have the ability to communicate. And so this was the challenging part, because then I'm just like, just doing whatever. Everybody, I just didn't have any opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember, like, when they first started, like, doing leg weights and things, I'd never done leg weights before in my life.
So when you say you'd done no training, you'd done
I did no training
ever?
Nothing, no.
Oh, right.
Well, I just played.
Yeah.
So
Just
I
turned up
played a
and
lot.
trained it on a Tuesday, Thursday. But
Tuesday, Thursday,
Yeah.
and then also I'll just be playing touch, or
Yeah.
if there's a game down the park, I'm down there playing. And
All right. And now
It's
you're
just-
a Crusader.
and I'm a Crusader, and then they're expecting you to go to the gym at like 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
or 6 in the morning it was back then, and doing all these squats and all these things where my legs couldn't cope with it. You know what I mean? I didn't have the ability to
Yeah.
process the training, especially because you got weights in the morning, then you got team training, then you got, you know.
Yeah.
And so what happened, I remember the first time I did that, I could hardly walk, man.
Yeah.
Doing these things, and I remember going to training, and I pulled my muscle in my leg, bang,
Oh, yeah.
snapped the muscle, and then the trainer was like, "Why didn't you say anything?" You know, he was upset that I didn't tell him I was so stiff, you
Yeah.
know. But then it's like, man, I'm not taught to say anything. I was taught to be quiet and do as you're told.
Yeah.
You know. And so I think it was, looking back, it was a bit harsh to the young fella, like, and it's, you know. But then it also created a lot of issues, that inability to communicate and to speak your mind. You
Yeah.
know?
So were you 80 kgs
No, 90.4.
on 90.4 first day down here?
Yeah, but I'd gone on a youth tour, so that didn't help me. And so 4 weeks over in Europe, like, man, my club got me on that.
Yeah.
Well, that was just before I knew anything about professionalism. So I
Yeah.
turned up like, oh man, after that tour, like, I was tired, you know. And so probably, those tours aren't easy on the body, that's for sure. Yeah.
And you had testing first day?
Testing first day, yeah. That was the whole story that I told, with getting pinned down to the bottom of the...
Yeah, go on, tell that one. That's one of the greats.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, so I turned up, and back then it was, like I said, we had a few guys coming in from the other regions, and the local guys that from the Canterbury, they were doing like the beep test. And I remember just like looking at them, and they were still in, I think it was like level 12, I think was my best, and that was like level 13, and the whole team was still doing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, first of all, I'm like skinny as, I'm the weakest, and now I'm the unfittest. It's like, oh, what am I doing here? I remember feeling embarrassed to take my shorts, take my tracksuit pants off and put my shorts on, because I'm like, oh, look at these toothpicks. Anyway.
What did you do it in your pants?
No, I didn't.
No.
I just remember thinking, oh no, what are they going to look at me and like, And and so I ended up pushing myself so hard in that beep test, and I ended up getting my personal best, and I did okay, but my legs were just like shot after that.
Yeah.
And then we had to go into the weights. Well, I knew my weights wasn't going to be my forte, that's for sure. But it was like they did it with a percentage of your body weight.
Yeah.
So they did like bench press, and I think it was like prone pull, and bench press I think was 70%, and prone pull was another one, I can't remember. The main one was the leg press, and so it was 2.5 times your body weight, and so you needed to do it best out of 20.
Yeah.
And then they gauge it, 15, 16 away. But it seemed like an easy one for everybody. Everybody was just pumping out the 20, and just that was it, ticking it off, and all the rest of it. And then I got to my turn, and then I went on the bottom of a leg press machine. I was sitting there and putting my feet against the thing, and then I just was like, I couldn't even budge it up to get it off going to start my 20. And then I remember the trainer like looking at me like, oh man, what's this guy up to? And then he was like, we've got to get something, 1.5. Same thing, couldn't even get it up. And they're like, oh, we've got to get something, man, anybody off the street will be able to do that. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice thing to say. And anyway, and then I got it up, finally got it up after one time your body weights, and he put 100 on, which was a bit cheeky. I was actually 90 kgs, but anyway, boom, got it up. I'm like, all right, I'm in, I'm doing it. And then it just went boom and pinned me down the bottom of the thing. Then they took it off, but I remember Motzi, his name's Motz, which is mouth of the south, And it was the first time I've ever seen him quiet. He must have just been thinking, yeah, what do we have here? But, yeah.
How do you feel after that? How do you feel? You know?
Yeah, no, I was totally deflated, mate. Just like, oh man, what am I doing here? I knew I could play rugby, you know, but all this other stuff is like I said, if you're going to pick me on paper, you wouldn't pick me, you know.
Yeah,
I just wasn't. But in saying that, they could have seen that.
Yeah.
And that probably would have put me on a different trajectory. I think I needed another year or two, like actually trying to put some weight on, the strength and all that, you know. But back then it was a whole different situation, you know. But if you're seeing like there's huge weaknesses in the body or whatever, you got to work on that, you know, or find strategies on how to like strengthen it. Yeah. But there was none of that around other than just doing it. Yeah. And so what happened is I ended up like sacrificing that because I had to I would sacrifice strength for mobility because I couldn't run. You know what I mean? Yeah. I needed to run around at training. I needed to play because that's what my job was. So I couldn't get any physical foundation behind me. Yeah. Because back then rugby went from like 6 months out of the year to 11. You know, and I was playing for 4 or 5 different teams in a year. And so what would happen, especially with the Crusaders, like later on, you'd play semi-final and final. As soon as you play that final, maybe have a couple of nights sort of relaxation, put it that way, and then you're back into another camp on the Tuesday or the Monday on another team. And the thing is that if you think about it, say a competition is 3 or 4 months, you got that coach, you know, he's just got his new job, he's a professional coach, this is everything that, you know, he's been dreaming of, he's been planning for, I don't know, what's that, 8 months, and then you arrive and he wants to execute it. Yeah. Okay, he doesn't really care that you've been through 4 other months or 6 months or 8 months. Yeah. He wants his bit of blood out of you, you know what I mean? Because his career's on the line, you know. So as a player, you're just getting passed along from one campaign to the next year, and so without any break. So you'd go away to Europe and you'd come back with 3 weeks break, and then you got the season starting again. Yeah. And I did that for 8 years, you know. And so my body at the end of it was just destroyed, because I never had a chance to sort of get any foundational fitness. So at the start, I was always on catch up. Yeah. So the second year that I played, I ripped the muscle out of my leg on my left side here, snapped it totally, like my rectus femoris, in a sprint test. True. I was back within 4 weeks of playing. And I remember I said, I can't play. They said, I'll just run around 60%.
Play at 60?
Yeah, just run around at 60%. Yeah. You know, we lead you for the lineouts. And so I played the rest of that year, a whole year, because that was right at the beginning. That was preseason. That was 2000. I was 21, just turned 21. That was 1997. So my second year of professionalism, I played that whole year of limping. I couldn't lift this leg up. Yeah. And then at the end of that year, something twisted and my back sort of gave out. And so that was a real damaging for my career, and I never ran freely again. True. So that whole career that I played, I was all because I was just tearing muscles after that. Yeah. My groin would go, another hamstring would go, and it was just all the scar tissue. So I had to learn how to like adapt my game, and that was really painful for me that second year, because I used to love like scoring tries, like backing up and all that. That was because if I looked at my if you look at the pillars of what made me a good player, right? So I write in memoirs. So I've thought about all this stuff, you know, and so. One of my pillars was like I was I wasn't strong, right? I wasn't big, so I was 90 kgs. These other guys are like 130, 140, some of them 120, you know. So, but I'm agile, you know, I'm quick. The other thing was I was intelligent. I was a reasonably intelligent player, so I could pick up plays, or I could was very good in the line out, or I could sort of read plays, and that helped me a lot. And the other thing was committed, you know. And then the other one was I had skills, and so I had good hand-eye coordination, because like I talked to you about when I was a kid, when I was a 5-year-old, all I used to do was play with the ball all the time, just bouncing it. So I sort of trained my hand-eye coordination. So those are the sort of things that allowed me to be a reasonably good player, you know. And so by taking away my agility and speed, that was a huge, you know, that was a huge part of my thing. So now I'm weaker, I'm smaller, I'm slower. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I have to like double up on my commitment. You know, my skills are always sort of going to be there. Yeah. And my intelligence sort of went out the window because I think that I was hurt about not being able to play well.
Yeah.
You know, because I loved playing rugby. I loved running freely.
Yeah.
And now I can't run freely. You know, I'm like running out. I'm 75%.
Yeah.
I had to learn to be 75% because as soon as I overstretch, my muscles will tear because everything was out of line. You know, and if I look back again and to what I said originally about the whole communication and all that, that's when I was out of balance because I couldn't speak up for myself. That's what created the imbalance. The physical side of it sort of was just a reflection of that at the end, you know. And so it sort of just manifested in the physical, but it was actually in other departments how I felt like I couldn't, you know, I wasn't aware enough of my own needs, of what was going on inside of me to be able to communicate it to somebody else. I was just like, there was a barrier there. Yeah. So even though I shouldn't have started playing with that leg that I couldn't lift up, I did it anyway. Yeah. You know, I didn't, you know, because there was all this, I suppose it was unconscious needs of wanting to be accepted or wanting to belong and all the rest of it. And if I can't play rugby, what can I do, you know? Yeah. And so, so that was, not a lot of people know about that because I didn't really talk about it. I didn't really want to acknowledge it. I didn't, you know, they knew it. They came out at the end of my career because my body had got to a state where I couldn't cope with any training. Yeah. So they had to I had to reach out and say, I can't do this because or else I couldn't play, you know. And so that was sort of came out about the imbalances the whole time, but it hampered my career a lot, you know.
Mate, it's so crazy how quickly it all happened, and like you said, your body wasn't ready. No, it wasn't ready for the rugby. You're almost too good, too quick to not be able to get that base in and be able to take the the proper pathway that most players manage.
That's right, and it's totally different now, you know. And but I suppose that's just the way it is. You know, the way that I played, I didn't really. It wasn't built for longevity, that's for sure. Yeah. You know,
you're always going to pick some sort of injuries up.
It was always going to be something. But that's the way that I like to play. You know, I like to feel the thrill of it. I like to feel the impact. You know, this is for me. It was. You know, we get onto it a bit later, but I had to learn to play a different style later. Yeah, a lot later. And that was really challenging, you know, but we can talk about that later if you want, if you've got some other questions.
Yeah, well, I'm keen to hear, like you mentioned being on the field, you felt really comfortable sort of in the environment. Off the field was the bit in the gym, I guessing living by yourself. I understand you had a car with a window didn't work. You used to sort of just use your boot as your wardrobe where all your kit would just stay. But
that's right.
I guess the lifestyle of coming down here as a young fella and learning how to be an adult, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. You're sort of on your own in a lot of ways. And it's just unusual environment as well. Yeah, I think one of the hardest things was just for me was the acknowledgement, I suppose, or the public sort of, you know, because I had a little, when I was younger, I had a split, you know, my life was sort of separated in terms of on the field and off the field. So on the field, I was like, it encouraged me to stand up, you know, it encouraged me to sort of express myself. And off the field was, like I said, I learned to sort of blend in, I learned to sort of not stand out, I learned to sort of get by, you know, without sort of creating too much fuss. And then when I started becoming more well known, it was harder to blend in. When then you become just about 2 meters tall, you're not going to blend in either. So you've just got this. It's the same with this bloody public speaking situation. Yeah. You're forced into it. You're forced into deal with these things, and you don't want to. Yeah. Which is a blessing, really, because if I didn't have these things, I probably would have hidden away my whole life in some ways. You know. Yeah. I wouldn't have pushed the limits. You know, hard to know. But, you know, and so that was one of the most uncomfortable things because then just about overnight, it's like a lot of people, like, I suppose it's like what do you call it? I suppose it's like projection, you know. Yeah. They come up to you and they want to talk with you, and I don't know. It was a challenging. That was one of the most challenging things for me to deal with, you know. Yeah. Just because it was so uncomfortable for me, you know.
You seem like a guy who would prefer to be by himself than having to mingle and be in social environments.
Well, yeah, that's right. I suppose you can learn it. Like around my friends, I'm probably a little bit like extroverted, maybe. Yeah. And then it depends on the moment, you know. But then around people I don't know, I was more shy and really like, you know. I suppose I didn't really feel I still had a lot of feelings of like not feeling good enough, and then when people were like saying you're awesome or whatever, that was uncomfortable for me because I had a different feeling to what they had, and then it was a confusing sort of time, especially when you're really young. There's no real blueprint for how to handle that, and I think as a culture, this is probably where drinking sort of came in, like that was one thing that just took the edge off that part, because not that people were like bad or whatever. It's not, they don't have ill intentions. It was just an uncomfortable situation, like just to talk to somebody that you don't know and they're talking about you or whatever, and it's just like, some of the interactions are really nice, but some of them are just uncomfortable. It's not because of the other person, it was because of me, Yeah,
that's interesting. What role did sort of alcohol play in your rugby career?
Yeah, so it was just prevalent in the culture, wasn't it? So especially in the north and things like that, it was just built into the thing, and so you sort of just learned to do it. But we just used it as it's like we used it to celebrate, you use it to commiserate, you use it if you're bored, it's a tool for to try and connect with each other,
Yeah.
But it's a tool that is easily it's easily what's the word for
misused
it?
Or misused.
That's right. It's something that's external, that you're taking in. You don't get a chance to like work with already what's there. It's a shortcut, isn't it?
Yeah.
It takes things away. It takes away the self-consciousness or whatever, and so. That was within the culture, but it's definitely like it was a short-term affected, but then at the same time, it's like you have pockets of like connection, don't you? And then you have disconnection, and so, especially with the way that we were drinking, and so, but it definitely takes the edge off. I remember one, I won't name who it is, but very famous player, good player. He sort of came in. Probably just early 2000s, so I already sort of been through it, like maybe, I was probably 6th or 7th year, sort of in the limelight, and they were like rocketing up, young superstars, and I just remember seeing the same happening to him. I just remember going out like one night, and it was just had so much impact. So many people coming towards him and so many things, and he's such a nice guy as well. He was really struggling, and I think alcohol was another thing that supported him, just to take that edge off, to be able to, somebody comes up to them, instead of like being uncomfortable talking with them, you could give them a hug or something, like the alcohol sort of takes that sort of edge off, but at the same time it's poisonous, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's interesting, fascinating hearing all that, and I guess you talk about like the recognition. I guess that only doubled when you became an All Black, and what was that pathway like? How did you find out that you're an All Black, and what was that journey?
It was interesting. It's cool, because when I was younger, I didn't have any ambitions of that. I was like, there's no way that I could be an All Black, even though I was a reasonably good player and making all the rep teams and everything. But and it wasn't until I sort of was when I first started playing for Northland, and then with the Crusaders and all that, then there was the media, and everybody was like, oh man, you're destined to be an All Black, you're going to be an All Black, and all the rest of it. Then I'm like, oh, maybe I can be an All Black. But at the same time, you haven't got the call up yet, so it's sort of like, is it or isn't it going to happen,
Yeah.
And I suppose with the All Blacks, ever since I was younger, like many New Zealand children, I idolised them, I remember watching the first World Cup when that was the first time, like that you really. How old would I have been there? When was it? 86, eh? 85 World Cup, wasn't it?
What was it?
87, sorry.
87,
man, that's terrible.
Right.
87 World Cup, so I was 11 years old in the first World Cup, and I remember the second World Cup when I was like, must have been 16 and then I was playing in it, and I was playing in the next one. Oh no, I wasn't. I playing in the next one after that. But I just remember like being amazed by it, just with the All Blacks, and so when I finally got the call up, which was after a while. I'd played 100 first-class games before I got the call up for the babies.
Oh, true.
And so physically I was probably behind my best,
Yeah.
I was behind, like my body was, the best of my body was behind me at that stage. And I was only 20, just turned 23.
Yeah.
Just because my body had taken so much damage early on.
So you were having to play at like 75% or what?
Yeah. It was there was lots of, there was, like, physically I wasn't my best anyway. Like I said, probably my best year, I don't know, I didn't really have it, Yeah. Well, like 95, 96, I wasn't too bad because I wasn't injured, but I was so young and weak, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then 97, I got like compromised with my movement, and then it was other strength came later on, but my mobility wasn't there. And so making the All Blacks was it was incredible. I remember because this was 1999. And so how I found out was just after the semi-final against the Reds. We went over there and we beat them, and then they said, I think it was Marshall, Merdens, Gibson, I think it was Fiki, myself, and there's probably somebody else that I've missed there. They said, you want to have a meeting with John Hart, and then the meeting was cancelled. But then we thought, I looked at the sort of people that I was with, I was thinking, and we sort of figured it out, So it wasn't official. The next week they sort of named the team, but we sort of knew what it was.
Yeah,
it was awesome actually. Everybody rang me up from wasn't social media days, so everybody's ringing you. I remember one of the phone calls I got from Sid Going, because Sid Going was my first coach in 1995. And that was really nice to hear from like people that people from your life, that you don't expect to hear from again. And, he was a really super nice guy, so it was really sad to hear that he passed recently.
Yeah, it was.
But he was the first guy who gave me that chance in 95, And then, obviously just a real honour, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, you've been chosen to play for the All Blacks, but that's just the beginning. That's the door open.
Yeah.
That's not the achievement. That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's your chance to either blow it or make the most of it,
How much pressure did you feel on that?
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Straight away, you're just stressing because it's like, man, I could just play half a game, or I could play,
Yeah.
and you could blow it. And that's happened to like countless people. There's one of the guys that made the squad. I think he played in maybe it was like a warm-up game and that was it. He got dropped and then he never really played. He didn't play a test match.
Yeah.
And so this happens all the time. Even another good mate did the same. Never played a test match. He played one game for the ABs or two on one of the tours. Had never played a test match, so the pressure's on.
Yeah. So how did you handle that pressure?
Just more pushing down, a little bit harder push it, a little bit harder to get the plunger out and then just like jam it down. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like playing for the All Blacks is easy in some ways.
Yeah.
Because especially like in some of the warm-up games or whatever, my first test match that I played was against Samoa, and we beat them by 77 points, so at that time you're really good players, you've got a really good setup, you've got amazing supporters, and it's just like, man, you're energized.
Yeah.
You're energized by the whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
And so that's easy, because there's another thing that is commonly said. It's like sometimes it gets easier as you go up the.
You just have to do your job.
Yeah, that's right. When you go up, and that's probably said before, and it is. It's sometimes if you could only you concentrate on your little specific job and do that really good, and then you've got enough to give extras.
Yeah.
That's what makes a good team and a good player, doesn't it? You know? So with the All Blacks, it's like, man, you got guys that I just really enjoyed the intensity. Like everybody was like, well, on. And that's an awesome feeling that, But in some situations, it's stressful, like big games and certain sort of different situations. So we came into that World Cup, so I might as well go into it. We came into that World Cup. What had happened in 1998 and before, it was more challenging to get out of the All Blacks than to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to get in it. Yeah. They didn't really change the team much. They'd always play, they didn't play as many test matches, and they played, this was through the amateur sort of days, and they played like that. And so what happened in 98, New Zealand they had all these lot of old players, but we lost 4 test matches in a row, and it was like, oh man, we've got to change something here.
Yeah.
So they hold on to those older guys a little bit too long, And so in 99, they changed it. They put a lot of new blood in there, but we sort of were missing a lot of experience, And so we went into that World Cup. That was World Cup year, 1999. Did really well in the lead up. I think we played against the French team. We beat them by 50 points in Wellington. I think it was my second test match.
Oh, yeah.
And so coming into 99, we were hot favourites because we had an awesome team. On paper, you'd just be like, man, these guys are incredible. You know, we had the Jonah Lomus, we had the Tana Umangas, the Christian Cullens, the Andrew Murdens, Josh Cromfields, the Anton Olivers. We had we had an epic team, you know. Justin Marshall, and the list goes on. And so we sort of went in there hot favourites, you know, because we'd beaten South Africa that year, we'd beaten Australia and all the rest of it. And so we did quite well. I think we went through, we beat England, who was the host nation, or they were England, Wales and all that, and we beat them in the round robins, and we came through and we played against the French. And that game was interesting because, you know, you talk about this whole expectation things and all that, and some of these things you don't know what it's like until you experience it. You can't prepare for it.
Yeah.
You don't know what that's going to be like until you go through it, you know. And if you don't have the tools to deal with it, you're lost to the experience, you know.
Yeah.
And so this is pretty much what happened to all of us in that 99 semi-final. You know, we were ahead 24-10, I think 60 minutes in. And then the French came back, they scored a couple of tries, and then we sort of imploded, you know. So that experience was quite interesting. It taught me a lot of things because I just remember feeling like panic and looking at my friends in the eye, and I was just seeing panic in their eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're like, what's happening, you know? Because expectations were beforehand, we were going to blast them off the field.
Yeah.
You know? But the reality was they were beating us. You know, and so the expectation is one thing, reality is another, and you're caught in the middle thinking, far out, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And so what happens is that what I learnt from that was that under these types of situations, quite often we'll revert into patterns. Well, we've got patterns running anyway, but then under high stress situations, it uncovers them. You know. In good situations, when everything's going well, sometimes you don't need to go anywhere near this stuff. But when things have all fallen apart, sometimes you go onto autopilot. You know. And so, but the problem was in a team sport, when you go into autopilot, you become an island. You become individuals. You know. So, for an example, it's like in that sort of stress fit, people will either go one way or the other. They'll try too hard, or go, you know, like go that way, or they'll close up and they'll go backwards. You know, they'll shell up. You know, so you have a pattern. Sometimes you got sort of a bit of both, but sometimes you have like a tendency. So for me, off the field, I would go insular. I would go quiet. That was the way that I would cope with stressful situations. I'd go internal. You know, I'd internalize a lot of things. On the field, I was sort of the opposite. I would get angry and I would like take action, but not clear action.
Yeah.
You know. So within this game, it was like guys were like, "Oh man," like I said, you look at your mate and his eyes are like, you know. When you get hypnotised and you got that like swirly thing, and the eyes are like that, you know, like in the cartoon, it's sort of like that. You look at your mate, you're looking at him for support, and he's looking at you like, you know what I mean? Anyway, so that actually taught me a lot because I was like, oh man, what happened in that situation, you know?
Yeah.
And like fast forward a few years later, so we ended up losing that game, obviously, and that was like in the 99, and everybody was like shocked by it.
Yeah, how was that to deal with afterwards? Like,
I got a bit of a funny story about that actually. You wanted me to tell you?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, it was me and Fiki, right?
Yeah.
Me and Fiki were my good mates, eh? And so we're like, oh man, we can't go back to New Zealand. This will be like a shit fight, man. What we'll do is we'll go somewhere for a couple of weeks, and then we can just sneak into the country without, you know, having to face up, you know. And so, anyway, at the time we were staying in hotels and around, you know, in the UK and that. And when you're sitting in your room, some telly on. They had some of these like these spring break programs and all that. So they got these all these like university students just partying up a storm, and we were like 23. At the time, both of us 23, just turned 23, and we're like, we're single, so we're like, oh man, look at this place, let's get there. Where is it? We could have flew anywhere in the world, you know. And it was a Tenerife, like in the Canary Islands. This place is pumping.
Yeah.
And so we go, so we created this plan, the two of us to go for 2 weeks to get amongst these festivities that we've been watching on the telly, you know. We're thinking, man, this is us. was mayhem, you know what I mean? Anyway, so we got our tickets to Tenerife, and then we turned up, and our first clue was when we got off the plane. It was like, it wasn't as warm as what we thought it was going to be, and it was like, oh, this is not so tropical as we thought it was going to be. Looked around, there's nobody there, and we're like, where's these bloody pumping parties that we've been hearing about? And then it was like, oh no, that's in June and July in the summertime. This is January. This is December, so this is the middle of winter. We didn't even we didn't even think about that. So we turned up in wintertime. Was the whole island was empty. Me and Fiki were there. Talk about expectations. And so, man, it's a lesson to not have any expectations. What happened in the bloody the semi-final, and now 2 weeks later or whatever, it happened to me and Fiki. So we ended up having a romantic weekend, two of us, for 2 weeks. Remember, we went up to one restaurant and went upstairs, and it was like, oh my God, it was like there was, what was it called? Like grape leaves and all that, and like candlelight dinner, and we looked at each other and we were like, man, what the... We had a romantic dinner. So so that was...
this isn't what we planned.
Yeah, so anyway, it was 2 weeks later, we got to New Zealand, and the funniest thing about that was one of the bag handler guys, first thing he said to us was, oh, you've got a bit of a cheek showing your face around here. Yeah, but then after that, well, like I said, there wasn't any media presence or whatever, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad because I actually went all right in that last bit of the game, because like I said, my tendency was to go hard, you know.
Front.
And but the problem was that I'd go into the water boy mode. I'd get a bit psycho, you know what I mean? And so, for an example, if there was a try scored against us, I'd just be standing there, just on my own, like just waiting for like a kickoff so I could like fly in and like to try and do something, you know, and no strategizing or anything like that. And so, like I said before, I was an island on my own. But I was actually like flying into things, or you know what I mean, doing things. And so they said, "Oh, Norm's all right." Norm and Jonah went okay, but everybody else was. So I ended up getting off the hook. But then at the same time, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not like trying to come up with a plan, or I'll kick it a little bit high and I'll try and tap it back. I'm just like kick it. You know what I mean? So
the water boy was based on a true story.
Well, that's right. That's what old Fiki likes to call me, but it's a bit like that. Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good. So when you I know you take a break out of professional rugby at some point. Was it after this Rugby World Cup?
Nah.
When was that, and what was the decision behind that one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got some good questions here. So what happened was probably so that was 99. So another 3 years later, you fast forward to 2002.
Yeah. And the World Cup was obviously 2003.
2003, yeah. And so, there's a lot of things that sort of went into that. It was quite a disappointing year for me. I'd got an injury, a hamstring injury. You know that bloody story I told about the water skiing incident? I had this water skiing incident where I sort of snapped both my groin and my hamstring, and then I sort of came back, and then I played 16 games in a row, and then my hamstring like pulled at training, and then I was out for like 10 weeks. I couldn't get it right.
Yeah.
And then I played like 2 games at the end of the year with NPC, just because I'm like, I've got to play. This is like annoying, because it was like depowering.
Yeah.
And my back was like depowering on me. And I remember saying to the coaches wanted me to go on the All Black tour because they've got new coaches. This when John Mitchell and Denty came in. They go, go on the end of the year tour. And I'm like, oh man, I haven't had an off season for 8 years. I need to get right. I can't run properly and all the rest of it, you know. And they reluctantly let me off that tour because they wanted me to have like they weren't happy with the 2 games that I played in the NPC at those 2 ones, but I couldn't run properly. You know, they didn't care about that. They were like, you need game time or whatever. They just they discarded that I had this sore leg. You know what I mean? And that was some sort of part of it as well. That was part of our culture, sort of like, well, harden up, or you're exaggerating, or whatever, you know. And like I said, that leg that I had, and my hamstring, and then the doctors and all that couldn't figure anything out. Oh, is it your back? Is this and that and all the rest of it? And it just went on forever. And so I sort of begged them to like give me an off season so I could get strong to play in the World Cup. And when I came back to do like a fitness test, I did a shit like running, but I still couldn't run. My hamstring was still not good. I was like fitter and healthier because I'd had like 2 months off or training or whatever, but they thought that I was like taking the piss out of them or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But I hadn't done that running for ages,
Yeah.
you know, and I couldn't run properly again. But I couldn't communicate to them about it, and it ended up being so I ended up getting dropped for that 2003 World Cup. Rewind a little bit to 2000 before, the year before, and one of the games, I just want to sort of point out like one point, which I think is quite interesting. So 2002, that was when the Crusaders like had that unbeaten year.
Yeah.
And so Deansy was coach of the Crusaders and the All Blacks. It was an unusual sort of move, but I don't know how he got both the jobs, but that he was doing that at the same time. We had like a pretty awesome team then that year, and we went through unbeaten. At the end of the year, we sort of like we had some tight games at the beginning, but we learned how to win. There was sort of groove we got in, you know, and it was we knew that we were going to win. Didn't matter who we were playing against. So if we just stuck to what we were doing, the other team would sort of implode on their own, like I talked about before.
Yeah.
That stress, you know.
Yeah.
So we played against the Brumbies in the final, and we just knew that we were going to beat them. I remember them trying to maul against us, and we were like, "What are they trying to do this for?"
Yeah.
You know, you guys are renowned for throwing the ball around and like got all those skills and all that, and all of a sudden you tried to like surprise us by mauling.
Yeah.
But that's not too much of a well, we're surprised that they did it. Doesn't mean that we can't defend it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's not your game.
Yeah.
And so they outsmarted themselves, you know.
Yeah.
And so this is what happens if you can just sort of stick to it and just carry on and just stay together and follow through with the process and what you're doing. Let the other team spin out a little bit, or you know, and that was sort of how it worked. And anyway, we came into like the domestic test. Oh no, was it domestic test? I can't remember the name of it. But Ireland came on tour. And it was in 2002, and they had a reasonably good team. But at that time, we would easily beat Ireland, you know.
Yeah.
And so we played a test match against them in Otago, but like Deansy and John Mitchell had picked like 17 All Blacks or 18 All Blacks, I think, Crusaders, to play in the squad.
Oh, right.
And so the rest of the, like 15 of us and then 3 reserves or whatever,
Yeah.
rest of the nation wasn't really that happy about it, you know, like the Highlanders and all these other, which is fair enough, you know.
Yeah.
And so when we went to play that, I think we swapped out our team. There was like mostly Crusaders, and then we put Jonah in, and then we put Tana Umaga in, and there might have been a couple of others.
Yeah.
But majority Crusaders. And I just remember that the crowd weren't behind us.
Oh, true.
They weren't supporting us in
Yeah.
Otago. They weren't really happy about it. So we played Ireland. We had the same coach. We pretty much had the same game plan. If the Crusaders played Ireland, they would have smashed them.
Yeah.
You know, well, just my opinion.
Yeah.
And you know, there is some sort of difference because sometimes you get the Northern Hemisphere refs, so they change it after
Yeah.
you've been playing with the Southern Hemisphere refs all through that competition.
Yeah.
There is some sort of adapting that has happened there. But at the time, we just sort of choked up and we just scraped that win. You know, and afterwards I was just like, oh man, I had to have a good think about it. I was like, well, what changed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one sort of thing that came to me was that it was just the external pressure. That was the only difference, is that with the Crusaders you could lose. You could lose a game. Well, they probably, you know.
Yeah.
and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
But with the All Blacks you can't. So it's like if you... that creates a lot of pressure on its own. A lot of like, you know, and so this is one of the big Achilles heels of the All Blacks, you know, because the other teams had freedom.
Yeah.
They had freedom to lose. They knew that their job wasn't on the line if they lost. They knew that domestic violence wouldn't rise if you lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All these different things where it's like, I'm going to pay the price here, and so that was the biggest difference. And I started to, okay, so this is what's happening. It's just the external impact that's affecting me, you know. And so what I tried to do there was I tried to like talk with the team, talk with some of the coaches to figure out how we can work within the team to sort of create the internal pressure we're creating, because we're creating our own pressure amongst each other, or you know, he talked about with the Crusaders how close the boys were, or the bond that they had. It's sort of that's one thing that supports you when these external pressures come at you hard. You know, if you have that bond of love, it's a lifeline for you to relax and to stay connected. If you don't have that, you're on your own. You know, and this external pressure can get to you.
Yeah.
But there's another level from that, which I learnt later, And so I talked about that with Mitchell and things like that. I was always saying, oh, no, well, because I remember one time at training, he was like, I expect this, and I expect that, and I expect this, and all this. I expect you guys to do this. And I go, and I interrupted, and I said, we expect it. You know what I mean? I remember saying, oh, we do. And he sort of looked at me like, you know, but I was just trying to like share it, you know.
Yeah.
We need to share the responsibility for here. It's not just you versus us. It's all of us together in the same boat, you know.
Yeah, like that.
And I was just trying to like listen, because there's all these sorts of things that they put into the environment that's, you know, not really conducive for connection. One of the things which always sort of bugged me anyway was they always had a lot of pressure on like punctuality, which is fair enough, because you don't want to be waiting and all the rest of it. But then they used to have this like fines, right? They'd fine you. One year for the All Blacks it was $1,000 fine.
Wow.
And drop from the 15 if you're late for anything.
Wow.
You know. And so, and you got to remember, it's not like a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
You have like meetings, trainings, promotions.
Yeah.
Every day of the week.
It's about 10 things a day you could be late
changes
for. Yeah.
every time. So you need to be like on the ball, you know. And I'm just like, man, why do we put so much pressure on this? Because it's isolating all of us. Why don't we just have a buddy system where that guy makes sure that you get there, you make sure that you get there. If that breaks down, that's the relationship between you guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just more of a like warm way of doing it. Doesn't mean it's going to be any less efficient, but it's not like isolating for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If there's a continued issue, we'll support what's going on here.
Yeah.
Don't just say, well, that's you know.
Yeah.
And so that was, but I always got like poo-pooed that idea. That was always like, nah, we're always going to stay like this. You know,
True.
we're going to stay doing the other thing. You know. And anyway, so I got boosted out of that. Like there was a few misunderstandings, and so I missed out on the 2003 World Cup, and that was sort of very disappointing for me, because I felt like I'd done the apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I'd been the incumbent since '99. I'd had that experience where I knew what it was like in that semi-final and that pressure cooker, and I learned from that, and I could support the team to be able to be more present and to not like succumb to the external pressure so much. And a big part of it was just acknowledgement, because we didn't even acknowledge it back then. It was just like, I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know we've got this big massive expectation and this fear, but we're not going to talk about it because we're just going to try, you know. And like I said, it's an Achilles heel, it comes after you. And so so I missed out on that, and it was painful because, you know how I talked about I didn't want I got those months off over that time. I was stronger than I'd ever been. I was like fitter than I'd ever been, but I never got the chance to play. They didn't play me, you know, because of this idea that somehow I'd like duped them into getting time off because I wanted to party with my mates or do whatever, you know what I mean? And instead of like doing the work, but I was doing the work, but I couldn't communicate with them about it. So that was very painful for me to do that, you know, because I felt like, man, this was my World Cup. So after that, that's when I decided to go. I thought, man, I can't face another super season. So I played the rest of the NPC out, which was awesome because I didn't have the All Black sort of like thing that I needed to live up to.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favourite years. When all the young guys were defending the Ranfurly Shield here, and that was awesome. Week after week, we was defending it with all these young players and no All Blacks.
Yeah.
You know, and that was awesome. Like that was one of my favourite seasons. I ended up getting Player of the Year, like Supporters Player of the Year that year, you know, just because I was just like, pressure had come off.
Goes to show, like the pressure and what you put yourself under doesn't help. And you hear it a lot when players, like when they've signed a contract or they finally get in a situation where the pressure comes off, how they can just play way more freely and play better rugby.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's just a mental. It's just a mental sort of thing you put on yourself. And it was just like, and I didn't really know what I was going to do on that trip. I just know I was going to be away 6 months, and then I was going to come back, and it sort of unfolded. I won't go into because we're short on time. Exact stories around sort of how that all happened, but I ended up sort of just like slowing down. I just thought, oh man, I just want to spend this time just to stop and slow down and catch up, you know? Because like I said, since I was 19, I've been on the run. Yeah. Or 18, my life went on fast forward. Yeah. When I wasn't even really prepared for it.
Yeah.
Now I get a chance just to process and download some of the things. So I'm not going to go and drink alcohol. I'm not going to do all the things. I'm not going to just repeat what I've been doing here over there. I'm going to spend that time to go sit places, sit in churches, sit by waterfalls, sit down and listen, learn to listen, because that was just an deep urge that was coming from me that I needed to stop, you know. So it's a little bit emotional because I know it's an important time in my life, you know. Just I don't know, just having the ability just to be there and listen to what's going on. You know, I think that's a beautiful thing. It's a hard thing, but it's a necessary thing for everybody to do. You know, to take stock of your life and to I don't know, to take care of yourself, you know, to take stock of what's happened, you know. And for me, I'd created a big debt in my body. My body was like a prison now. It's painful. So coming away, so like I said, I wanted to stop everything. So I stopped the anti-inflammatories, I stopped the alcohol, I stopped everything, you know, painkillers, sleeping pills, got off everything. And then you just there to experience what's coming back at you, you know. And it's not a pleasant experience, man. So I was like pretty much like a long skinny rotisserie chicken at night, like having to spend 10 minutes on one side, that's painful, another 10 on this side, just constantly twisting and turning because you just can't get any reprieve from the pain, you know, the stiffness, the pain that you sort of cause. But then it's also emotional, it's also psychological stuff that you've sort of stuffed down and ignored, and now it's coming to you because you want to listen. You want to listen, but you have to listen. And, you know, and that was real. You know, so I spent like 6 months doing that, and by the end of that, like right just before I came back, I sort of just came to an understanding that rugby wasn't me. You know, it was part of my experience, but it wasn't me. I had attached my self-worth to being this rugby player, and this was the pressure. And I'd looked externally for other people for a reflection of myself, you know. And that was it's an uncertain sort of place, uncertain way to live, because your self-worth and your self-esteem goes up and down on other people's opinions. It goes up and down on the situations in your life, like a roller coaster. You play well, you make the team, you feel good, people like you feel good, people don't like you feel bad, if you can't play, you know. And putting my self-worth into something physical was always going to be finite, you know, because at some stage I couldn't do it anymore, you know. And so then I was coming up to that stage where it was like, oh man, I can't continue this. So who am I? You know what I mean? Who am I if I'm not a rugby player? Because it's not Maxwell rugby player, you know. So then I just come to the realization that it's not me, you know. That's just it's what I've experienced in my life. I'm not a rugby player, you know. I'm something else, you know. And so that's the question mark. Well, fuck, who am I if I'm not a rugby player? Who am I, you know? And that's a good question mark. Because that's something that's if you're putting stamps on yourself or who you are or what you do and how you are and what you believe in, that becomes a prison after a while, because life changes. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't want to be the funny guy, or maybe, you know, that day or whatever. If you haven't got a gauge on it, and then you're attached to what people sort of think about you and all that, you're always playing this game. You're playing this pretending. And I remember just thinking, man, I'm not tough. I'm far from tough. You know what I mean? Oh, Norm Maxwell, the hard man or whatever. I'm the opposite, because I've been acting. You know what I mean? I've been pretending. Because I'm pretending to everything that I wasn't. You know what I mean? So I was in pain. I was afraid. You know. I was weak, and then I'm just trying to portray that I'm not. You know, I'm getting a pat on the back for it. And I just remember thinking, well, what's tough is like a person looking after their, you know, like their special needs child not getting any acknowledgement. Not me running around on a rugby field like showing off. You know what I mean? And it was like a real like, opening for me. And so when I went back to play, I tried to play from a different place, not from a place of just trying to get it from other people, like a place of emptiness, but a place of like being more fulfilled, self-fulfilled. And so I had to learn how to give to myself, how to acknowledge myself, how to accept myself. And that was the real challenge, especially when you've got all these patterns of just getting it from other people, gaining it from other people. So when I came back, that was the most challenging season that I'd ever come across, because I couldn't play the same way. I couldn't like fly in and smash people because my body couldn't do it anymore. When I had that 6 months off, everything tightened up. And so I had to play from a different place, a more conscious place. So I needed to be very conscious of where my body was. As soon as I overstretched, it would just tighten up and I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't like it would stiffen up and just be, it would tighten up and just lock up. And so it taught me to be like super conscious, but then I couldn't smash people anymore. And that was my old image. Oh, you're the guy that smashes people, or you're the guy who goes out drinking and all this. And now I'm like, I'm not drinking. I don't want to drink anymore. I can't smash anybody anymore. So I'm pulling down all that old image that I'd created for myself. But what was left behind, and what could I learn to give to myself? And that was challenging, because it's like I had no blueprint for that.
Mate, that is so powerful and so fascinating. Like I guess it's a point where everyone struggles. Everyone I've had on has had, who's finished their rugby career, has struggled at some point around that transition from being that Norm Maxwell, the rugby player, to now what am I? You've sort of done it before you finish. You've come back again. Right. How was it when you got to that point and you had finished? Was it easier, or was that still a really tough transition?
I think that the work that I'd done, yes, it helped me a lot. If I didn't, it was already tough as it was. It was tough because it was like all of a sudden I had like 20 good mates, 30 good mates, and now they're gone. Like, where can I meet them? They're already, most of them split up around the world. They go everywhere. And it was like, because of that forum, there was a support structure that we had that bring us together, because my brotherhood was the thing that sort of, we talk about how my leg wasn't good and then all these other pressures or whatever. The brotherhood was the thing that sort of made it all worth it. Because they're with you, you know what I mean? They're going through the same things, and they're not having that was very challenging. But having that sort of insight and then experimenting on how I can support myself in a different way, because that's a process as well. It's not like, because once you get sort of the understanding of it, it's like the All Blacks. It's an invitation. How do you actually do it under pressure? Because you're constantly like getting drawn out of yourself with whatever things, and it just seems like a cycle that sort of you get into, and awareness is the thing that supports you to sort of break those cycles, But it was tough for me. Especially, and so I spent a lot of time sort of a bit lost after that, It's not like I wasn't like broken. I was just like, where do I fit in with this situation? Because I had enough of rugby. I didn't want to go down there anymore. I didn't want to try and put my self-worth into like being a fucking top coach or being a whatever. Not that people do that, but it wasn't a choice that I wanted to make. I knew that I needed to walk this other path of like really becoming more authentic, I suppose, and not like giving myself away or giving my opinion, giving those things away. I knew that, but I didn't know how, and so that was the challenging part. And so I spent a lot of time, like I said, the way that I went in, I think it was a unique period also, because now, before professionalism, the top rugby players had professions. They were school teachers, or they were, worked for banks, or they had these sorts of things. And so when they finished, they had something to go back to, I sort of went in, and then the guys after me, they have experience. So now it's like they go to academies, they're already getting taught about what's going to happen afterwards. And so I was sort of just right on that list where it was like, we had no support, and we had no idea, and I was one of the ones who went straight from Polytech or school straight into professionalism. I knew nothing else. Like I said, I wasn't that great at school, and I didn't have any trade or anything like that. So it was like I was getting like a box of vegetables like delivered to my door every day, and all of a sudden I haven't got that, and then I've got a garden there, but I don't know how to grow it, you know? And so I sort of went through that patch for a long time, oh man, what do I want to do? there's a lot of things that I didn't really, I couldn't see really where I fitted, and that was challenging, yeah.
And you mentioned your body, like being in
that's
all
right.
sorts. What about your head, like concussions?
Yeah.
Did you have symptoms from there? Because the way you threw your body in.
That's right. And so that's another huge influence on this whole thing as well.
Yeah.
So when you're retiring and you're pain and you got headaches and you got all these things, it's another barrier because I can't go work labouring because my discs are broken in my back, or this is just my body can't physically do that.
Yeah.
And so you start and now I get pain with artificial light. So there's a lot of situations I can't do with the light. I can't really do much with computers, or I can't do anything like that. So all these things are sort of, you're getting pigeonholed, it's challenging. If you look at it, like you got your physical body, you got your mental body, you got the emotional, and then you got your energetic, your energy, life energy. And so any of these things are I look at it like 4 tyres, and so those tyres have got to be full to be able to move in that one direction. If one of these tires, one or two of these tires are down, you end up going around, and your life end up going round and round in circles. So for an example, my physical body was in need. Yeah. So I was in pain all the time. So I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable sitting. I'm not comfortable standing. I'm not comfortable lying down. I've got no choice other than to try and mask the pain somehow with the alcohol and pills and all that. But that's leading you to destruction. Or you need to walk a path of trying to fix it, and then so you sort of in some ways you have limited choice because of the amount of ignoring that you've done. You've created you've limited your choice to be able to walk out of that, and so you can either, the way that you look at it, you can either embrace that or you can feel like it's a burden, oh man, why do I need to do this? But it's what I've created myself, eh?
Yeah. Is your body still like that now? You're still
getting better. Yeah. So in the last few years, I've been doing a lot of yoga and that. So nice. It's been good. Yeah. So that's been awesome because I've been strengthening up muscles and different things in my body, which I hadn't used for a long time because you go, like I said, you go into these different patterns. Your body just naturally, it just has these ways of coping with injuries, and so. So I'm actually better than I've been for a long time, cool. But it takes a lot of effort. Yeah. But, and this is what I need to do to be able to feel okay.
In your mind, do you feel like you got any symptoms from the amount of concussions you had throughout your life? I mean, your memory's good, you can recall.
Yeah, memory's better, I said, a lot of the other guys are, man, far out, some of the stories, man. Oh, man. I'm like, what? I'm like, is it me? Anyway, sort of. Sometimes my missus probably have a different sort of spin than what I would do. But, I actually talked to a neurologist. There's, with this. I'd like to get a CT scan to see what's going on, Yeah, okay. But they talked to a neurologist. There was one of the, I think it was maybe that suit that's going on with...
the rugby.
So they sort of talk with me about it just to check me out, and they go, I'll talk to this neurologist, and I talk with the neurologist. She was like, oh, do you feel like your personality's changed? And I said, I hope so. And then she goes, no, you're all right.
You passed the test.
Yeah, you passed the test, man. But I'm like, man, hopefully I'm evolving and changing, man. I'll be bummed out I'll be bummed out if I'm still the same as what I was back then. But it's hard to know. Like with the body, you got sore body, you got tired body. It affects me with my son. You know what I mean? Yeah. He can't hit me there. He can't do that. Oh, I'm tired. You know what I mean? So that's sort of a bit like that. And mental stuff. I don't know. It's hard. I suppose you can't really tell.
Yeah, what is normal?
It's challenging to self-diagnose yourself on mental stuff. Yeah, but nothing really extreme, I don't think.
Yeah, sharp as. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about before we get to the questions was around your charity work. I know you've done a bit of work in India, Africa. You love giving. A lot of people speak around how generous you are with your time, money, everything. Like just a giving person. So talk to me a little bit around that and how you got into it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, like with all the stuff that we've talked about, really, wow, man, it's just gone. Yeah, it's gone by. What's the point? It's entertainment, but it doesn't exist anymore. And so this is the interesting part is that, well, that's one of the things I discovered as well. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter, like, even who you think you are. It's what matters is how you are, and what you share, And so that was just a natural consequence of just healing yourself or, repairing what you've, like the injuries and things that you've carrying, and it's just natural consequence to want to sort of support others to do that, When I was like, I had a lot of insecurity and a lot of like things going on, I've worked my way through it. I've been lucky enough to work my way through it, and not all of it, but I've been walking that way, and so it's just natural for me to want to try and give back, And so so one of the things is with the children, so they're the innocent ones that need support, they're the vulnerable section of society, and so these are the good ones to put some energy and attention into. And so rugby, when I started coaching rugby, I always had that sort of the well-being aspect, because I knew sort of rugby sort of helped me to sort of, I guess, lack of a better way of putting it, sort of wake up a little bit further, so I always added that in when I was coaching, because for me that's the goal part.
Yeah.
The seasons are going to change, the points are going to change. This doesn't, what I mean? This doesn't matter so much. What can you take away from it?
Yeah.
What can you use this experience for to support your life? To make you a better father, a better son, a better partner, a better version of yourself. How can you use this vehicle to be able to do that? Because the rugby is, you got commitment, you got all these different things that sort of come together to be able to allow this to happen, because you always want to get better, but all it is just focus, just sometimes I think it's just a bit too far on the performance side. I think that well-being is when you make decisions based off profit and efficiency, and without adding in the human sort of welfare well-being aspect of it, it runs the risk of becoming a cold machine-like product. And I think that's where professional rugby has got to. There's been like a disconnection between like the grassroots and the professional game, and I think a lot of that's got to do with it. And so I always think that you've got to put like well-being and performance as a pillar, They need to work hand in hand, and they do work hand in hand. They're not against each other.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways, and you need to like apply them to they're a little bit more challenging to quantify than like something physical or technical, but it's doable, but it needs to be a priority. Yeah. And so So I did that with my coaching, and it was good, man. A lot of guys, they still text me to this day, thank you, you know what I mean? I just got a letter from a player it must have been, when was that? It must have been 2015. He said, did I ever send you this letter? A handwritten letter, like a Spanish guy, and just talking about how sort of his life and how he's been touched, for different things. And so, it's a challenging one. I love performance. I like to win a game and all that, but I'm not going to do it at the expense of somebody's well-being, I would rather, I was going to be slightly the other way around for me, and so then my partner's very empathetic as well, she's pretty amazing, and I've learned a lot from her, especially around like the children, she really loves children and sort of sees them all as their own, and so I wanted to create we had an idea to create a children's charity. So that the idea was it's for children to support children to learn from experience. So give them these experiences at school and in a supportive environment, and then because what I started to see was I could go to some of these schools, I could go to some of these events, and I could speak inspirational words, but it's incomplete because people don't learn from words; they learn from experiences. So with the words and the experiences combination, that's more comprehensive. You know what I mean? And this is what I want to do. I don't want to go up there and just say words. I want to co-create something that's awesome. That's going to make a lasting impact. That's where I want to go for the future, to make a better, people have better life experiences, to be able to like be more conscious and not like destroy the futures. I don't know. Opportunities. This is isn't that our responsibility to be able to make sure the next generation has a good life, instead of like stealing all the resources and and so that was a big part of it. We did this, and we did a pilot, and it was really good. So I tried to create a support structure similar to the rugby structure, but geared around well-being. And so it was really good because what I like about the rugby structure is that you got the preparation, then you got the test, and then you got the review.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that within that model, you can really you can make some progress. Yeah. And so this is what I try to do there. And it was awesome. Even like for an example, negotiation. I had no idea about negotiation, and so I got ripped hard just because I didn't have any representation, but I didn't understand the way their business worked, and so I was on like real low money. I remember saying within the negotiation, don't rip me off, don't pay me like more than what I'm worth, just pay me what I'm worth, you know what I mean? And they're like, right.
Nothing.
And so, part of this whole school thing was trying to let's try and add this live negotiation. And so one of the weeks we did like the whole idea was for the kids to do something to support the community, to give back, and so the teacher picked a local charity that they liked. It was like a homeless shelter or something. I can't remember the name. I apologise for that. But and the kids were going to like bake some cookies to give away to the homeless shelter or whatever. Yeah. But to bake those cookies, they needed to go and talk to the people at supermarkets to be able to talk to them about what they're doing, and can you support us, give us some of the products and all that. It was very interesting. We did like dummy things and all that, but it's these kids were like 11 or 12 or something like this, and it's just awesome to be able. That's just one thing, It's just been awesome to be able to like give them that in a supportive environment, or how can we do better, or just teach them how to like do these life things that. Because the way that I looked at it was like, man, what would I have loved to have learnt at school that I didn't, that I struggled with and had to learn the hard way? And so try and put all those in together, everything that I learnt through the team, I bring them down with the Crusaders for one day. There's all these different things, and so that was sort of one aspect of it. The other thing was just recently I've been doing a lot of work in India with an amazing project there where they use rugby as the vehicle for supporting the community, and this is incredible. And so this is for me, this is where it needs to be. It's not a compromise to performance, but then you can use this vehicle to do some amazing things to support so many people, and it doesn't need to be rugby. It can be anything. It's just having a common focus and being able to work together diligently to be able to do it.
Mate, I love it.
And get away from like I said, the time is past for this every man for himself situation. Yeah. We need to get away from that, because it's leading us into destruction, and we can't take any of this shit when we leave. You know what I mean? So we're better off, because we're falling to pieces. We're better off to put that down. Find ways of putting that down and then working together for each other. Yeah.
I know we are short for time, so we'll get through a couple of questions. I have had thousands come through on the Instagram, so most of them were stories actually. And this one is it true that you wore your dress shoes at post-match, after matches, I guess? So.
Yep, that's true. I just forgot my dress shoes and put my Multisol rugby boots on. The thing was with that one, the main thing was just to be undercover with the situation, So I'm either going to go bright white, which is easy, or I'm going to go black with a little swish or with a few little bit of a tap dancing, tap, tap, tap sort of scenario. and then I'd be sweet. And then anyway, there was a guy from the media who saw me.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, "He's not wearing his boots." And then he wrote an article about me. So yeah, so that was the.
Well, that one didn't stand to cover.
Yeah, that one didn't stand to cover.
Okay, next one. Tell the story about the toilet on the plane.
Yeah, so that was that's the toilet on the plane. The boys love that one. So I'll try and do a short version of it. I was when I was on that trip, that trip around the world. That was in 2004. I went to visit Razor in France before I came back, and I was chopping back on all these baguettes. So I ended up getting constipation, But just before I went on the plane, I thought, oh man, I've got to sort this out. So I went to a fruit shop and ordered one of every fruit that they had there, and ate it. And anyway, it was most of the way on the flight, and then I was thinking, oh no, I finally need to go,
Yeah.
And then, but I was sitting right next to the toilet, so I was sitting on the seat. The toilet was right next to me on the right, And then there was air hostesses in front, on a bulkhead,
Yeah.
So I ready to go. I went to go to the toilet, and I did what I needed to do there, and just quite left a large, let's say, what did I call it? It's just like a. You know what I'm saying?
Rugby ball, by the way.
Yeah, just Anyway, when I went to go flush the toilet, it wouldn't flush. No, I'm stressing out. Then I'm sweating. Oh no, what am I going to do here? I can't leave this situation like this. And then anyway, back in the days, they don't have them anymore, but they used to have a flap.
Yeah.
Like a flap that would go down. You know what I mean? So I got my toothbrush and I was pushing down, trying to push the flap down. And that wasn't working. Then I ended up getting caca on my hand. And then it was just oh no, now I've got two problems. I got that, and then I got this. And then I started washing it in the basin, and then the basin wouldn't drain. And so it was now I got three. And then it was just compiling, and I was just sweating at this stage. And then I thought, oh, now I've got to what I'm going to do with this this caca water that's in here. Let's try and push it into because where they got there's a little place where there's we put napkins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was trying to spoon the water into there, and I was getting smeared over the glass. And at this stage, I wasn't thinking very clearly. I was just on I was just on panic mode. It was like an episode of
It's like the Rugby World Cup.
Oh yeah, that's
again.
right. Exactly. It was exactly like that. I was choking. I was just sweating, and I was just oh no. Anyway, I heard this bang 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 on the door, dug dug dug, and there was no way I was going to let anybody in. I was nah. And then it was just my self-consciousness just taking over. So many times I thought back, and if I'd just done that first one, excuse me, somebody's not, the toilet's not flushing, but I couldn't. That's hindsight, isn't it? Anyway, so this knocking on the door, bang, bang, bang. There's no way I was going to let them in. I had to solve this problem, and then all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 minutes later, the plane landed, and I was still in the toilet. And so it must have been an air hostess knocking on the thing, and anyway, I waited for a little bit, and then I peeked my eye out the door, and then I was I went and sat in my seat, and then the people that were sitting next to me were cracking up. They go, "Oh, do you always land on the toilet?" And then I was oh my God. Then I was oh, I've got to get away from the scene of the crime, because I was sitting right next to it, and I'm oh man, I just can't wait for this bloody the light to turn on, for me to do the old rude guy, push all the way up to the front. As soon as that went on, boom, I was off. We doing the old weaving all the way up to the front, getting out, and then I got all the way out, and I left my bloody my CD case on there, and it had my credit, my passport, my FPOS card, and everything on there. I was oh no! And I had to go all the way back to the gate. So all the way through back to the gate. They had it there, which was good. Went to go get my bags. Right, this was in South America. I think it was in Rio de Janeiro. Oh, I said Rio de Janeiro. And what was it? Rio de Janeiro. Anyway, the missus will be upset with me with that pronunciation. And anyway, I went to go get my bags, and my bags didn't arrive. I was oh no! And then I was supposed to be there in transit, because I was supposed to go had another flight to Sao Paulo. That was where I was going.
Oh.
And so I didn't even realise that. So my bags didn't even turn up. I had to get another domestic flight to catch up with my bags.
Man, it's like a movie scene.
Oh no, it was, man. I was sweating. So when I first told that story, this was oh no, this is 20-year-old story. The boys just cracking up about it.
Oh,
so I just remember cold sweat just coming out of that toilet. Oh my God, I'd like to take the opportunity now to apologise for the person who had to clean that situation up. I don't know why the toilet wasn't working or the thing wouldn't drain, but I'd just like to say sorry. I apologise. I'll do it myself. I wasn't so shit scared of.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, does he still teach young players kitchen surfing? Not sure what that is.
Oh,
What's that one?
yeah. Oh man, who was that? Cameron McIntyre, was it?
Must have been. I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Too long?
So he. Oh man, I'm gonna have to use it. Yeah. So let's be at Dan Carter's place. So Dan Carter had like a flat in Ireland, somewhere around there, and we used to go around there quite often. And he had this like big kitchen. It's like with a hard floor, they're tiles, I suppose, and then it was carpet. And so what you do is you put a little bit of soap down there, and then you slide. It's very long, and you slide all the way to the bench. But you got to have good technique, or else it's dangerous. There's hazards. You just got to run, and then you just like pretty much stationary and just slide. And it can be quite fun, Anyway, Cam McIntyre was there one day. He was sitting down, like, give it a go, man. It's easy, it's good, it's cool. He's like, oh, no. I think we'd been out. We were sort of just relaxing. Oh, give it a go, man. All right. But problem was, he didn't. He made a fatal error. He didn't back himself enough. He didn't give himself enough momentum. He was on the back foot. You see, you need to be like even, maybe even on the front foot a little bit. You can't be on the back foot. So anyway, when he went on, he was too hesitant, and that was his downfall. And he slipped like that, and then he went to put his hand down, and that went under like that, and then he went bang, knocked out cold.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. So he went from sitting, relaxed, chilling, to knocked out cold within like a minute, or not even a minute, like 30 seconds, all because of me, like encouraging him. And I had to laugh at that because I found that quite ironic, the whole situation. But it couldn't happen to a better guy though. But yeah, so he was like that cold, and I remember my friend was like, it's not funny. And then he sort of woke up and was like, oh, what happened? And I said, mate, you didn't back yourself enough. I was straight into telling him about the technique. I don't know if he appreciated it, but mate, you did it to yourself, mate.
Oh, that's good. Okay, 2 more if you've got time.
Okay.
How did you learn to hit so hard without the weight behind you?
Yeah, it's momentum. And so I think it was more just commitment. So you just had to go harder, like I talked about before. You had to be willing to hurt more than the other person, which isn't a good strategy. At all.
So that's your mindset going into the collision.
Yeah, well, it's time and space,
Yeah.
And so what I used to love when I was younger, I used to love to get the ball and the man at the same time, but you'd come from the blind side.
Yeah.
When they had a new defensive system, when you had to come from the inside out, you could never hit anybody blind.
Yeah.
But then if you could get the ball and the man at the same time, like I said, the more running he's got, the more momentum he's got. So if I can come and meet him at the same time, that's how you do. So you got to read the play a little bit, But I think I had reasonably good technique, but I just used to hit hard as I could. Anyone like my weight, I could just blast them. There would be no matter what they did, if I could hit them square, they couldn't have any resistance on me.
Yeah.
But the guys bigger, with bulkier, that was more challenging.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get hurt in those different situations, but I wasn't really that intelligent. Like I said, later on I needed to be more intelligent of where to hit, how to hit, and all the rest of it. It was just more force, and I just tried to hit them like in the middle there, where I could have done like different techniques for different situations. I was trying to like put a round peg into a square hole every time, but I don't know. Yeah, like the body sort of. I don't know.
Hey, I love it. I love that mindset.
It's just timing. Yeah.
So cool. Okay, last question. I ask everyone this one. Best piece of advice you have for a Woodlad listener?
Yeah, I think self-awareness is one of the most interesting and important things to learn in life. Yeah. And so there's all sorts of different ways you can do that, but I think that taking some time to turn inward and cast an eye on what's inside, I think this is a vital thing and a valuable thing to do.
How do you do that?
Well, you just turn your focus internally. I think that obviously there's lots of different techniques, different ways to do it, but it's just turning your attention internally. How do you work with that? all that stuff that's inside, that's another thing.
Yeah.
You know. But I think that you can follow your nose with that, and you'll find your way through. Because lots of different ways of doing the same thing, isn't it? You know, we're all sort of different. Yeah. Not one sort of thing goes to the other. But I think it's an important thing to do, just to be able to sit and just to be. You know, not have to like do all the time.
It's so cool, and I think that's such powerful advice for especially a lot of guys coming into the game where it's so different.
Because the other thing is that you need to, if you can't learn to calm your own waters, you're lost in the storm, you know. And so this is a very important thing this is what a big part of the project that I was doing, was to get the kids. It was about self-awareness, it was about self-acceptance, it was about self-responsibility. You know, those things, they all work together. And then that allows you not to get knocked around so much with the externals. Yeah, and that's the aim. If you can be under your own steam, you can regulate. You're not getting pulled. You're not getting triggered. You know, or if you are getting triggered, be aware of it. Yeah. And then, you know, it's a skill, and it takes effort, and it's work like anything, but it's a very valuable thing to do.
Mate, what a way to finish the podcast! Like, what an honour to have you on. Like, such a incredible man. Such a I remember watching you as a player, as a kid. The way you threw your body into contacts was inspiring, and just hearing your journey and what you had to go through with the physical demands you put your body through, and the mental journey that you've been on as well has been super inspiring, and really appreciate you coming on and giving up your time.
No, I appreciate the invite. All the best, man.
You're a lad. Yeah.